Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster back here on this Saturday night, May 20th, 2023. It is about 9:58 p.m. here along the west coast in the state of California. And looks like we got a little bit of activity ramping up here just north of the, let's see here, Death Valley area. Getting a little bit of earthquake activity ramping up here in a specific little swarm. This all kicked off here just a little bit ago. Started off with a couple low-grade earthquakes, followed up by a 4.2, the largest here in this mix of earthquakes. Roughly, that was about 10 kilometers deep or so for that 4.2. Since then, followed up by some 2s and 3s and some other smaller microquake activity. This is just off of the Death Valley. Well, let me see here exactly where this is at. Okay, it looks like the Fish Lake Valley Fault Zone, Cucamonga section. There's the Death Valley, Owens Valley. I know there was a Death Valley fault down here. There's so many of them out here, but it's been a while since we've seen any earthquake activity specifically in this region. Let me go back here last 30 days or so. Scattered movement out here across a good portion of the desert. Now again, this goes back the last 30 days, so it looks like there's been massive amounts of swarms and whatnot. But a lot of this activity has been accumulated over, a 30-day period. This right here is coming up on about 21 earthquakes here just in the last 24 hours. And the majority of that started off this evening. So we got 21 earthquakes here in the last, since about 8 o'clock. So that's a lot of earthquake activity ramping up here. So we'll watch that and see how that plays out as far as historical data goes here. Well, let's take a look here and see what's going on. Let me bring up the earthquake map, and I just want to look at some larger quake activity here across the region. We're gonna go custom here. And we're going to start off with just 5.5. And then we're going to go back a little distance in time and see what's been going on. All right, we'll zoom in here to the area of interest. If I can find it, that's going to be right north of this, what is that, Panamint mountain range, it looks like. So right up in this specific area here. Just going to cover this region and see what we have for earthquake activity. Well, they're invisible. There they are. Okay. Kind of disappeared there for a little bit. So it looks as though most of this activity is well north here. Of course, we know the Owens Valley fault. That was a pretty big earthquake back in 1872. But this is more centered around this area. Right up here on the border. Which would be, I guess, kind of close to this area. Looks like 1993 east of the Big Pine region. Seen a 6.1, 3.6 kilometers deep. Now, let's see, 5.7 back in 1999. So yeah, technically, there's not a whole lot of historical data out here. And if you look on the fault map here again, the northern, well, actually, it is the northern Death Valley fault zone. I just seen it here. See that northern Death Valley fault zone? I knew I wasn't losing my mind. But it looks as though it changes its name here, just really close to this activity. Fish Lake Valley Fault. If I remember right, this is the area that did see some swarming, but a little bit further up north, I believe, earlier this year. Right? I believe that's that same area. And there's not a whole lot of information here on the Fish Lake Valley Fault Zone. Let me go over to the Caltech website and see what we can find out about this. I know we were trying to find the Fish Lake Valley Fault, but there's not a whole lot of information on that. See, there's not even nothing. So Death Valley fault zone. Length 115 kilometers. Total length of fault segments is roughly 200 kilometers. Accumulated slip rate around 3 mm per year on the south end. Considerably less at the north end. So looks like regular major intervals of earthquakes, roughly around 1,000 years or so. Probable magnitude 6.5 to 7.3. Unlikely that all segments would rupture at the same time. So yeah, either way, a little bit of interesting activity out there tonight in the desert. And again, these are all over the place in terms of the depth below the surface. A little bit deep and a little bit shallow. So just a heads up. Rest of California here, not super active in the north. Down south here, nothing showing up in the last hour. Looks like most of the activity here, very small microquake movement. This little swarming here around the Palomar Mountain Observatory, most of it from this morning. We did see a couple more in the afternoon, but very small microquakes in that region. And the rest of the Pacific Northwest and the Intermountain West, for whatever reason, the USGS puts a temporary pause on the preliminary earthquake activity that gets sent out unless it's above a certain level. Sometimes it seems like it's around 2.5, sometimes larger. So that's why no quakes at all are showing up here across the area, but we know that's not true. It's just they haven't triggered the preliminary computer, or the computer that puts out the preliminary data. Let's see what we got here for the tremor map tonight. There we go. I'm a little bit shooken up today. I went to the fair here with Missy Mimi's and rode a couple rides. And man, it's been a long time since I've been on some of those rides, and draining after getting off of it. It just feels like I've been ran over by a train. I mean, it's fun once in a while, but I don't know if I'm up for that anymore. Little shooken up. No tremor activity at all. Zip zero showing up here on the map tonight. Yellowstone National Park. We'll check this out here real quick because it's a lot of times we'll have swarming going on and nobody reporting it except for me. And as of right now, everything looks fairly quiet. A little blip of an earthquake here, 2 of them to be exact. Looks like within the last hour or so. Nothing big, just a couple small microquakes in that region. The rest of the country, fairly quiet, little spotty activity further east. Most of the movement here, it looks like it's happening around the Middle America Trench southward. Just quite a few 4s, some 2s around the Puerto Rico area. We are noticing a little trend down here south into the very tip of the South America region off the coast of, let's bring this up here real quick, the Chile region. Did see a couple 4s earlier this morning, but also we're getting some activity further to the east here around the South Sandwich Trench. That one coming in at 63 kilometers deep for a 5.1. So noticing a little bit more active activity here across the southern portion between the Antarctic plate here and the South America region, showing some uptick. And this is all following the activity, of course, over here into the Loyalty Islands area. So speaking of them, let's see what we have going on here. New Zealand still looks pretty quiet. We'll check that out here in just a second. I want to get a total tally here because this is going to be probably fairly impressive. 65 earthquakes, and these are not microquakes. These are all 4.5 and above, with the largest sequence of earthquakes here being the 7.7 a couple days ago. That was followed up yesterday by a 7.1 and a 6.5. As you can see, the numbers are racking up. That's quite a bit of energy taking place here in this region of the world. So what have we had since then? It looks like one minor adjustment, but this one awfully deep. 4.3 earlier this morning. It looks like just prior to noon my time. 622 kilometers deep. That's going to be this earthquake right here into the Tonga Trench. We have been noticing quite a bit of deep activity here prior to all the movement here south of the Port Vila area, Vanuatu region. So this setup is interesting because we keep getting this back and forth movement here between the trench and the larger scale activity at the surface levels here just prior to the subduction zone in this area. No westward migration across here. I expect that to fill in soon, but what is holding it up, I'm not for sure. But we should be on watch for some potentially larger scale movement across this area. Looking at the last 30 days of 4.5 and above, there's a lot, right? You could say every area has been hit, but that's not necessarily the case. There's always earthquake activity, always strain building up in certain regions. And with this type of setup down here across the Loyalty Islands area, we should be watching for some further strain upstream here across the Solomon Islands and the Vanuatu area. Port Vila did have a couple smaller quakes here in between the time of the larger quakes there on the 18th, and yesterday is when they had the 5 and 4 there on the 19th, which was yesterday. So it looks as though it's trying to make its way up here. That's why I'm kind of thinking that this area may be in some prime conditions here for some larger scale movement. So just keep an eye on this area very closely. It's just been a whole, but I mean, that's a lot of movement here, folks, that we've witnessed here over the past couple days in one area to have 2 7s. Crazy. All right, so we'll watch this little blank area, so to speak. There is some movement around the Philippines and up around the northern end here of the Java Trench. Mostly 4s and some 3s. The USGS map, that was kind of weird. Doesn't show a whole lot of activity here. Just one outside the Andaman Sea with a 4.3 early this morning and a 4.9 here into the Philippines at 59 kilometers deep. But as you can see here on the map, there's quite a few more smaller quakes there in the mix of numbers. Japan region and the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, one earthquake up here off the coast south of Tokyo, Japan, 4.6 early this morning. Nothing really going on up here across the Kuril-Kamchatka. We did have one 4.8 here. Looks like earlier today into the Aleutian Trench. Very shallow earthquake here. All right, further west across Iran and the Mediterranean Sea. Looks like we have a 4.5 coming in just about an hour or so ago into the Mediterranean area, the Greece region up along this plate boundary. A glance at the US or the EMSC model globe here shows some activity kicking in. Looks like a 2.2 also in the Turkey region, some aftershock movement. The Atlantic Ocean, aside from the South Sandwich Trench here, looks fairly quiet for now. So California definitely of interest right now with that swarming going on away from the plate boundary. This is well inland, right? But a lot of accumulated stress builds up not only at the plate boundary, but the subsequent faults and whatnot, the folds, and this is how all these mountain ranges and whatnot get formed. And you know, there's many fault systems all over the place here due to pressure and general plate tectonics. So inland activity could be a bad sign that there's definitely some extreme pressure out here against the west coast, but we'll just kind of watch this and see how this plays out. Right now, 24 earthquakes following the 4.2, but this it's not like it was just a main quake and then a bunch of aftershocks. This activity, 4.2, had some activity prior to the main quake there, if that's indeed the main quake. So we'll watch it. Definitely keep an eye on that area. New Zealand, I don't think we have a whole lot going on down there, but I will take a peek here. Looks like 3.5, 6 hours ago here. There's one from yesterday, 4.1. All magnitudes, Let's see, mostly smaller microquakes across the area. Not really seeing anything major or static taking place there. The earthquake drums map should show that 3.5. I believe that's the 4 from way earlier this morning. It looks like the 3 was only 6 hours ago, so I'm not even really seeing that up here. Maybe right here, 6 hours ago. Yeah, looks like that's about it. But aside from that, for the most part, everything looks calm out there. You know, not completely calm. Don't want to jinx it, but for the most part, very minimal activity taking place there across the New Zealand region. The sun is another story. We are popping like crazy in the M flare department, and we've seen quite a few large flares here over the past couple days, all coming from a very active sunspot region. 3311, it looks like it does have a couple partners here, 3314 and 3318, surrounding this main area. If you look very closely there at 3311, let's zoom in here a little bit, you can see the very complex structure that it harbors and poses a really serious threat for an X flare. Closeness here of the colors. There's many different colors involved in the structure of this magnetic field that it has. That's definitely a noteworthy sunspot here to watch. 3310 down here looks massive, but it doesn't have all that complex individual magnetic points there that the 3311 has. And over here, 3305. Let me see what we got over here. This is that one sunspot that's been just kind of moping along here across center disk over the past week or so. It gets further to the northwestern limb out of the view of Earth, so to speak, and it decides to ramp up. This area looks fairly complex, but I think the main one right now, folks, is this individual right here that could produce a X flare any moment. 35% chance. That's an elevated 35% chance for an X flare from 3311. And 99% certainty, of course, for C flare activity. M flare elevated at 75% chance. M and the proton event 15% chance. We are currently experiencing a small flare, but it's almost like a consistent flaring that's going on here from the 3311 area. That's going to be the sunspot. It's just been bright all day. Over the past couple days, it's just been arcing, kind of like a flame getting ready to really flare up, so to speak. So we'll definitely watch that. 3311 again is the hot probability here listed on the active region probability here. 3311, 90, 70, and 30 there for the X class flare. It now harbors, it looks like it's evolved a little bit. Beta Gamma Delta class, that is the ones that produce some major X flares. So we'll watch this. This is not completely Earth directed. The latest imagery here shows it's still kind of on the northeastern limb, northeastern quadrant of the sun. We do have to watch this as it rotates further into view. But I think the likelihood of seeing an X flare and then lined up with Earth is really high right about now. So this thing is growing. It's not weakening. It's getting further developing spots around it. So we'll watch this very closely, folks, in the hours and days ahead. There's that unexpected G2 storm there from, was it last night or night before? Right now, there is no major coronal holes facing us. Doesn't look like it. This one here, 06 and 05, is kind of pointed to the south off of the Earth-Sun plane. But we will watch that. Maybe, potentially, could see a little bit of solar activity ramping up because of that. It looks as though that has been added here around the May 23rd time frame. A little bit of elevated solar weather activity coming up on that date with a 60% chance of auroras, and storming at the higher latitude, mid-latitude regions have a 20% chance. So it's getting active, definitely getting rather interesting here on the sun with this area. Again, we are headed towards solar maximum, right? Here in 2025, the summer, right around June 2025. We did take a little nosedive here in the actual number of sunspots and the SFI here on the bottom, but still somewhat well ahead of schedule, but nothing like what we had been here earlier this year. We were way up here. I was expecting that to continue to climb and be a crazy solar maximum, but I don't think we're done yet. It looks like these little dips do take place here on occasion, and let's hope that it does ramp back up. All right, let's see what else is there. There really hasn't been any massive CMEs from this sunspot region. Mostly they have been impulsive behaviors, basically just a quick flash or a quick spark, so to speak, if you can picture that, of a strong flare, and then that's it. No massive CMEs, but we'll continue to watch that as again this 3311 evolves and gets into a better position for Earth. Weather out there, not a whole lot going on. Tomorrow's about the only day that may look a little bit interesting up here into the Pacific Northwest, eastern Washington, eastern Oregon, portions of Idaho as well. It's a little odd, right? No tornado threat tomorrow, though. Wind and looks like hail may be the main threat. Doesn't look like there's any major severe weather outbreak coming up here, according to the Storm Prediction Center. And I guess that's good news, right? Definitely need the rain out here across portions of Kansas and Oklahoma still. Do you want to pull up the precipitation? Excuse me. Accumulated precipitation here over the next, well, all the way till June 6th. If it goes that far, it looks like it does on the map. California even getting in on a little bit of rain here. Not for sure when that is. I think we got some cooler weather, some showers coming up next week. But here, throughout the southern plains and Texas area, looks like these areas that are really hit with the drought here recently are going to get some much needed heavy-duty precipitation out here, so that's good. We'll take all the rain they can get without the severe weather. I think that would probably be a good bet there. So we'll continue to watch that. Either way, it looks like some good rainfall coming up here. All right, folks, I am going to jump off here and try and get a little bit of sleep tonight. It's just crazy what some amusement park rides can do. I mean, it's all fun and games, but man, right after, I don't know if it's a adrenaline crash or what, but I used to be able to jump on these rides and ride them again and again, and purchase the bracelets that you can ride all the time without, having to buy more tickets. But I only went on a couple of them, and I was like, man, I'm done. Missy Mimi's was ready to roll and ride on some of the ones I wouldn't ride on. And she did, a couple of them. But overall, goodness, I don't know. I think I'm out of that stage. I think I'm out of it. All right. Keep a watch here, California. And like I say, I don't think we've seen that. We really haven't seen that migration here across the region following all that large-scale movement. Still almost seems like it wants to continue to apply pressure out here, and specifically in this region with that deeper activity occurring today. So just kind of watch it and see how it plays out, folks. Have a good night. Stay safe. It is Saturday night. We'll catch you guys back out here tomorrow, Sunday morning. Have a good one.